The rain had stopped only an hour ago, but the streets still smelled of wet dust and car exhaust. People hurried past with umbrellas dripping at their sides, shoes tapping the pavement with tired rhythm. At the corner, next to the flickering sign of a closed pawnshop, sat the man everyone only referred to as the beggar. He didn't beg, though. He just existed there, as if the city had forgotten to move him when everything else changed. His skin was dark, deep and rich like polished wood, and the lines on his face suggested many more winters than his posture ever admitted. His guitar looked older than some of the buildings on the street, its varnish chipped, neck scratched, strings rusted but still holding on. Every afternoon he tuned it with slow, deliberate movements, like someone handling something sacred. Then he would play, soft, almost shy, as if afraid to disturb anyone. People rarely stopped. Sometimes children tugged their parents' sleeves to listen, but the parents always pulled them onward. The world was busy, and no one had time to listen to melodies that sounded like memory. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't ask for coins. But a small tin sat near his feet, and every day a few coins ended up in it, just enough for a piece of bread and maybe tea if luck was kind. Despite that, there was a peacefulness in him, something gentle, something that didn't match the frayed coat or the holes in his gloves. His fingers, long and careful, glided over the strings with the precision of someone who had once played under spotlight and applause. But no one knew that. To them, he was just another shadow in the city. The day the Heir arrived, the street was particularly loud. A flashy silver car screeched to a stop much too close to the curb, drawing eyes before the doors even opened. Laughter burst from inside, bright, careless, belonging to people who didn't know what it meant to be hungry or unseen. The door swung open, and out stepped Alvaro. Perfect hair, designer jacket, sunglasses even though the sun was already low. He moved with the confidence of someone who had been told his entire life that the world belonged to him. His father owned studios, clubs, even radio stations. Music was in his blood, but not in his soul. His friends followed, loud voices bouncing off brick walls. One of them pointed at the corner. "Look, Alvaro, your competition." They all laughed. Alvaro's smile sharpened, the kind that was meant to impress and wound at the same time. He walked toward the old musician, the soles of his expensive shoes clicking with arrogant rhythm. The beggar kept playing, not looking up. The notes floated like quiet breathing in the noisy street. Alvaro crouched slightly, pretending to observe. "That's cute," he said loudly, making sure his friends heard every word. "Trying to play music out here, huh? Tell me, old man, do you know any real songs?" The beggar's fingers kept moving. He didn't answer. Alvaro's smile widened, amused by the silence. He straightened up, chest puffed. "Tell you what, if you can play one of my father's songs, any of them, I'll give you my car. This one." He gestured at the gleaming machine behind him. His friends burst into laughter again, the sound bright and hollow. The offer was impossible on purpose. It was entertainment, cruelty disguised as a joke. Only then did the beggar lift his eyes. They were tired, deep, and unsettlingly calm. He didn't smile. He didn't flinch. He just nodded once. And for the first time the Heir's laughter stopped. The crowd thickened almost instantly, as though the city itself sensed something unusual was about to happen. People who had been walking with purpose suddenly slowed, circling closer, drawn by an invisible pull. Cafe customers stepped outside, cups steaming in their hands. A bus driver paused at the curb longer than necessary, eyes in the mirror. Phones lifted, ready to capture a spectacle, though none of them truly knew what they were actually about to witness. The beggar adjusted his guitar with a slow, practiced care. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from time. The guitar was missing a tuning peg. One string buzzed at the wrong pressure, yet the man handled it like it was made of crystal. The city noise dimmed, not because it grew quieter, but because everyone stopped paying attention to anything except him. Even the Heir's laughter had faded. though he still forced a smirk to hide the small foreign feeling rising in his chest. The beggar closed his eyes. His breathing deepened. His fingers hovered just above the strings. For a moment, it was as if he was listening to something within him or something from far away, no one could tell. Then he began to play. The first chord was soft, dusty, like a memory someone had buried long ago. The second chord trembled with warmth, rising like something waking up inside a heart. And then the melody bloomed. It was the song. The song. Not the polished studio version the world knew, not the one played at galas or streamed online. This was the original, raw, aching, filled with the fragile kind of hope that comes before success takes its price. The crowd's faces changed. A woman pressed her hand to her mouth. A teenager lowered his phone, eyes wide. An elderly man who had been passing by suddenly stopped and leaned forward, like he recognized it too. It wasn't just music. It was confession. A life poured out note by note. Alvaro's smirk dissolved piece by piece. His eyes widened, then blinked rapidly as if trying to chase away the sting forming behind them. He knew this song. Not from the radio or from award ceremonies. He knew it from nights as a child when his father sat at the old piano before success, before distance, before silence filled their home. He remembered sitting on the floor with his toy cars while his father played this very melody with hands trembling, not from age, but from dreams. But his father had told him something once, something Alvaro had never questioned. No one else ever knew how to play it. I wrote that alone. I played it alone. So how? How could this man know it, and not just know it, feel it? Every rise, every ache, every place where the melody hesitated because the heart behind it had hesitated. The beggar played on, unaware, or simply uncaring of the tears beginning to slip down the cheeks of strangers. The music swelled, filling the street with something sacred. For a moment, the city paused. No engines, no voices, no footsteps, only the sound of what had once mattered, what had once been beautiful, what had once been real. The final note lingered like a breath held in the air too long. Then it fell away. The beggar lowered his hands from the strings. Silence followed, heavy, reverent, trembling. No one laughed, not anymore. The silence after the last note was almost unnerving. It was as if the entire street needed a moment to remember how to breathe. People stood frozen, their expressions softened, eyes unfocused as though they had been pulled somewhere inside themselves and hadn't quite returned yet. The beggar lowered his head slightly, as if bowing not to the crowd but to the memory of something, someone, long gone. Alvaro's hand was still halfway raised as if he had meant to laugh or applaud or say something clever, but the gesture had crumbled. His throat was tight, his chest unsteady, like a crack had formed right through the center of him. He stepped, closer, not with arrogance now, but slow, unsure steps, as though he were approaching a fragile truth that might break if he moved too fast. Where did you learn that?" His voice was soft, too soft for someone used to being loud. The beggar finally looked at him. The deep brown of his eyes held years of wandering, hunger, cold, but also something more, something warm and human and painfully honest. "Your father taught me," he said, softly enough that only those closest heard, but the silence was so complete that it carried. "We played together, before the world wanted him, before he forgot the people he loved to become someone the world would not forget." Alvaro blinked again, hard. For a moment his face looked like a child's, confused, hurt, trying to understand something enormous. "My father never mentioned—" "He wouldn't," the beggar replied, but there was no bitterness, no accusation, only quiet understanding. "Fame is hungry. It takes pieces from a man. Some people lose only a little. Others lose their whole name." A cold breeze passed. One of the heir's friends cleared his throat, suddenly ashamed of the laughter from minutes earlier. The others stood still, eyes lowered, wishing they could disappear into the sidewalk. Alvaro reached into his pocket with trembling fingers and pulled out the keys. Silver. Clean. The kind that belonged to someone who thought everything was replaceable. He swallowed hard and placed them gently on the curb by the old man's shoe. "A deal is a deal," he whispered. "The car is yours." But the beggar only looked at the keys. He didn't move to pick them up. His voice, when he spoke, was heavy with a softness that cut deeper than anger ever could. "I don't want your car." Alvaro stared at him, confused, almost desperate. Then, "Why did you agree to play?" The beggar lifted his guitar, holding it the way some men hold memories. "To remind someone who mattered to him," he said quietly. "Someone who needed to remember. Not the fame, not the money, but the man he was before all of that cost him everything." The heir's breath faltered. He looked down at the pavement, ashamed of something he didn't even have a name for yet. Something that had been missing, inside him, for a very long time. And now he understood, at least enough to know the guilt was real. When he looked up again, the beggar was already stepping away. Not dramatically, not with triumph, just a quiet walk down the street as though he had simply finished what he came to do. The crowd parted for him without a word. Alvaro didn't call him back. He just stood there, watching. The silver car gleamed beside him. But for the first time in his life, it didn't feel like anything at all.